In 1962, a simple trash fire beneath a quiet Pennsylvania town set off a chain reaction no one could stop. Streets warped, homes were abandoned. Today, only 5 people remain above a fire that still burns, unseen. How did a thriving community vanish into smoke, and who let it happen? The answer begins with a single municipal decision. On May 27, 1962, Centralia's Borough Council gathered for a routine order of business. Memorial Day was coming, and the council wanted the landfill cleaned before families visited the cemetery next door. 5 volunteer firefighters were hired to burn the town's trash in the open pit. That landfill, a gash in the earth carved by old strip mining, was already notorious for its foul smell and illegal dumping. Pennsylvania law had banned open dump fires 4 years earlier, but the council pressed ahead, ignoring warnings from state inspectors about gaps in the landfill's clay barrier. Below the surface, those gaps led straight into a maze of abandoned coal tunnels. The fire crew lit the heap and watched it burn. When the flames died down, they hosed the ashes, assuming their job was done. But beneath the garbage, a hidden hole connected the pit to the mines. Hot embers slipped through, settling onto exposed coal far below. Within days, the smell of burning drifted towards St. Ignatius Church. The council tried to smother what they could reach, but the fire had already vanished underground, unreachable. Council minutes from June 4th noted 2 separate fires at the dump and the bills from the fire company. Yet, when the Lehigh Valley Coal Company demanded answers, the borough sent a letter describing a fire of unknown origin during a spell of hot weather, avoiding any mention of the sanctioned burn. The official story, crafted on borough letterhead, hid the truth. Centralia's leaders had made a decision that would haunt the town for generations. Centralia's memories linger in faded photographs and the voices of those forced to leave. On quiet mornings, children once raced along Locust Avenue, passing the old schoolhouse and corner store. Families gathered for church picnics, and miners swapped stories on front porches after long shifts underground. For generations, the town's rhythm seemed unbreakable. But the smoke creeping into basements was only the beginning. By the late 1970s, the ground itself started to betray its secrets. In the early hours of February 14, 1981, 12-year-old Todd Domboski stepped into his grandmother's backyard. The earth gave way beneath him, opening a hole 4 feet wide and dropping him nearly 150 feet toward the burning void below. He clung to a tree root, choking on sulfurous fumes, until his cousin Eric Bush heard his screams and pulled him to safety. Emergency crews found carbon monoxide levels near the sinkhole high enough to kill a grown man in minutes. That morning, panic swept through Centralia. Parents kept children indoors. Neighbors gathered in disbelief, staring at the smoking crater where Todd had nearly vanished forever. Lifelong residents, some with 3 generations in the same house, faced impossible choices. For many, the sinkhole was the final warning. The fire was no longer just a story beneath their feet. It was a threat that could swallow a child whole. Some families packed up quickly, taking only what they could carry. Others stayed, hoping for a miracle or a government solution. The town's population, once 1,500 strong, began to dwindle. What had been home became a place of fear and uncertainty, leaving scars deeper than any mine. Beneath Centralia, a tangled labyrinth of abandoned coal mines stretches for miles. These tunnels, carved out over a century of mining, run as deep as 300 feet below the surface and cover an area of nearly 3,700 acres, about the size of 7 city parks stitched together underground. When the fire slipped through the landfill's floor, it found this hidden world ready to feed it. The coal seams, mostly the Buck Mountain bed, hold enough fuel to keep burning for centuries. Unlike a wildfire, the flames here move slowly, smoldering through the coal at a rate of about 75 feet per year. The fire's progress is almost invisible from above, but inside the labyrinth, the heat can reach over 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Cracks in the earth act like chimneys, drawing in fresh oxygen and venting out smoke and toxic gases. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and sulfur seep upward, sometimes slipping into basements or drifting through the streets. Old mining maps, when overlaid with modern gas readings, reveal just how unpredictable the fire's path can be. Bootleg mining in the Depression years left extra voids and shortcuts, making it nearly impossible to predict where the next sinkhole might open. Attempts to seal the fire off with trenches or barriers only gave it new routes to follow. What started as a single spark now moves through a maze, unstoppable and largely unseen, turning the ground itself into a hazard for anyone living above. Stories still circulate claiming the Centralia fire could have been stopped if only the right trench had been dug, or that a single heroic effort might have sealed it for good. But the reality underground was far more complicated. The abandoned mines beneath Centralia formed a tangled, unpredictable maze, with some tunnels mapped and many more lost to memory or erased by decades of bootleg mining. Every attempt to cut the fire off, whether by bulldozing barriers or digging deep trenches, ran into the same problem. Air found new ways in. The so-called chimney effect, where heat and smoke rising through cracks pulled fresh oxygen down into the mines, turned every vent or fissure into a lifeline for the fire. David Decock, a journalist who spent years studying the disaster, put it simply. Trenches were supposed to starve the fire, but the ventilation only made things worse. The fire just moved around the barriers. The stubborn belief that a single fix could work led to wasted time and money, while the fire kept advancing. Myths about spontaneous combustion or mysterious origins only muddied the facts. Records show the ignition point, the failed attempts, and the science behind why the flames never stopped. In the end, the fire's persistence wasn't just a matter of bad luck or poor planning. It was a lesson in how nature, given the right conditions, can turn human mistakes into something no one can easily undo. In 1983, the federal government offered Centralia's residents a choice: take a buyout and leave, or stay behind as the ground grew more dangerous. The buyout cost $42 million, enough to purchase nearly every home and business in town. For some, it meant a chance to start over. For others, it felt like surrender. The highway that once connected Centralia to the outside world, Route 61, was diverted in the early 1990s after heat warped its surface and sinkholes made it impassable. The state condemned the town as uninhabitable in 1992, and lawsuits followed. A handful of residents refused to leave, fighting eviction in court for years. In 2013, the state granted life estate rights to the last 5 holdouts, allowing them to remain in their homes until death. Bob Stanley, one of the remaining residents, described the silence that settled over Centralia after neighbors left. He said, "It is not about the buildings, it is about not letting go." The population, once 1,500, dwindled to fewer than 10. The battle for Centralia ended not with a single decision, but with a slow, reluctant exodus and the stubborn will of those who refused to let their town disappear without a fight. Beneath Centralia, the fire is expected to burn for another 250 years, slowly consuming the coal that once built the town. This kind of underground blaze is not unique. In Australia, Burning Mountain has smoldered for about 6,000 years. In Jharia, India, coal fires have forced entire communities to relocate, with more than 100,000 people displaced. Centralia's story is told in the work of scientists like Dr. Sarah Baxter of the USGS and Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection, who monitor the site and warn that old mine maps and surface checks alone are not enough to prevent future disasters. For classrooms, Centralia offers more than a cautionary tale. It is a living case study. Students can debate modern solutions, overlay historic mine maps on current satellite images, or track how policy decisions shape the outcome. The Morning Call archives and records from the Columbia County Historical Society preserve the evidence, challenging each new generation to learn from what remains, a town that vanished, but a lesson that endures. Centralia's fire still burns, invisible and unstoppable. It is proof that some disasters outlast those who cause them. Today, more than 200 underground mine fires smolder across the United States. What we bury never truly disappears. It just waits beneath our feet. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below.